Welcome back. The Dallas Stars lose out in the conference finals in 2023. Of course, in 2020, they went all the way to the Stanley Cup final. And it feels like with Dallas, I've talked about this with Carolina. Carolina's had, a good run of success. Dallas kind of has as well. Last year, missing the playoffs being kind of the exception. They've made the playoffs in 4 of the last 5 seasons. And again, they end up in the Final Four for 2 times in the last 4 years. So there's definitely a good base there. There's something with this team that could end up winning a championship at some point. They're just not quite there yet. So they beat the Wild in the first round in 6. They beat the Kraken in the second round in 7, and then they lost in 6 against Vegas. They showed a lot of fight back in all 3 of those series. There was a lot of just everything that you want in a playoff team, but they don't quite get over the hump in the end. So when we look at the scoring, Robertson led the way during the regular season, 82 games played, 46 goals, 63 assists, 109 points. The guy's a superstar. In the playoffs, he had 7 goals, 11 assists, 18 points in 19 games. Now, he's below a point per game, just barely, and I thought he had a really strong series, both against the Kraken and against Vegas. In the series against Vegas, the puck was going in the net a little bit more than it was for him in the series against Seattle, but he never got bothered. It never threw him off. He's not a player that gets frustrated when he's not scoring. He doesn't go out there and do anything dumb. That being said, we'll move on to Jamie Benn. Jamie Benn, the team's captain, of course, 82 games during the regular season, 33 goals, 45 assists, 78 points. In the playoffs, 3 goals, 8 assists, 11 points in 17 games. Of course, he missed 2 games with a suspension. While he was out, the team was 2-0, and there's something to that. There is absolutely something to that, and so the question mark becomes one of, how do you fix this team, knowing that trading Jamie Benn probably isn't an option, but we'll talk about it. And how do you make this work? Now, in the event that they were able to move Jamie Benn, the next up for captain would likely be Joe Pavelski. He is signed through next season. 82 games played this year, 28 goals, 49 assists, 77 points. He just keeps getting better. And in the playoffs, in 14 games, 9 goals, 5 assists, 14 points. Huge driver of the offense for the Dallas Stars throughout the run, throughout the regular season as well. Really, honestly, beloved amongst the fan base, and for good reason. Rope Hintz is a star as well. 73, and I don't just mean Dallas star, I mean a star player. 73 games played by Rope this year, 37 goals, 38 assists, 75 points. So you got to think that if he'd played the full schedule, he would have had 40 goals and 40 assists at the very least. But here we are. In the playoffs in 19 games, 10 goals, 14 assists, 24 points. He had a ridiculous first round. The scoring slowed down a bit after that, but yeah, Hintz showed what he can do. He is a good, solid young player, and this is a good mix of veterans and youth in Dallas as well. Heiskanen, one of the younger players on the blue line, 79 games played, 11 goals, 62 assists for 73 points this year. In the playoffs, he adds a goal, 11 assists, 12 points in 19 games, and he played a ton. He is the workhorse on that blue line, and I don't know very many people who don't think Heiskanen's an elite defenseman. I've seen some that say he's overrated. I would counter that no, I don't think that he is. And Heiskanen is a huge part of this team for a long time to come. Tyler Seguin, during the regular season, 76 games, 21 goals, 29 assists, 50 points. In the playoffs, 19 games, 5 goals, 4 assists, 9 points. I think Dallas would like more points from Seguin. He is the number 1 paid player on the team. And again, that contract likely not tradable at this point. So what you see is what you get. Seguin, probably a 50-point player from here, might threaten 25 goals, but that's really kind of where we're at. In the playoffs, I didn't think Seguin played badly. I didn't remember a moment where Seguin kind of cost Dallas the game. And again, going back to Ben, there were a few times that it was like, okay, so that kind of cost us the game there. Wyatt Johnston learned a lot in these playoffs. I expect him to be better next season, and this year he was already pretty good. 82 games, 24 goals, 17 assists, 41 points. In the playoffs, 19 games, 4 goals, 2 assists for 6 points. So the point production drops off in the playoffs as it does for a lot of players. But Johnston is the real deal, and I think he's going to be really good going forward. I wouldn't be surprised to see him hit 30 goals next season. And then you have Jake Ottinger. Ottinger is this enigma right now. So during the regular season, 37, 11, and 11, 919 save percentage in the playoffs, 10 and 9 with an 895 save percentage. Ottinger is not the goaltender that everyone remembers from that series against Calgary last year, because that was just absolutely ridiculous. I don't think he can do that again. That being said, he has to be better than an .895 save percentage in the playoffs. Last night's game wasn't on him, but 6 goals on 29 shots is pretty ugly. So for Ottinger, I think there's definitely something to be said for his future being really bright. Of course, I've got an Ottinger jersey, and that's why. That when I was deciding who to put on the back of the jersey, I thought, I really like that Ottinger kid. I think he's got a good future. And so here he is now as the undisputed starter, and I think they need to figure out what they're going to do in the future. Maybe he was overplayed during the regular season, right? So if you're looking at his numbers in the postseason being down, maybe he was tired, maybe he was injured, maybe he's nursing some kind of an injury, which again at this time of the season most players are. But yeah, Jake's numbers need to get better, but he's young, he should bounce back. You've got a UFA and RFA list that's interesting with Dallas. On the RFA side, Dellandrea probably gets a bit of a raise. I don't think it's going to be a ton. He, of course, had 2 goals in that win over Vegas in Game 5. But in general, that's not really his game. And then Matt Murray is a restricted free agent as well. I wanted to put that one up there because just the fact that there's 2 Matt Murrays, it entertains me. On the UFA side, they have Dodonov probably moving on. Max Domi, I think, is probably moving on as well. Domi was really dynamic, really good offense, but he also took some questionable penalties, which I think has been the discussion point around Domi throughout his career. Really solid offensive instincts, but he does tend to lose his temper here and there. And I think that cost Dallas at certain points during this run as well. I like Glendening a lot. That being said, if Dallas decides to move on from Glendening, he's a 4th line forward. You can replace a 4th line forward. Olofsson, I'd like to see them hold on to. Olofsson, honestly, I thought was good enough that he should get bottom 6 minutes next year. I would hope to see him re-sign in Dallas. Hanley, good veteran depth defenseman. If they decide to keep him around, I won't complain. And Tufte. Tufte's time in Dallas is likely at an end. He played very few games for the Dallas Stars. We'll see whether or not he ends up in Europe or if some other team picks him up. Of course, he was a late first-round draft pick for Dallas some years back. And despite some hype around him, he never quite lived up to that hype. So we'll get into the contract side of things. So Tyler Seguin, it's a $9.85 million contract, or at least cap hit until 2027. I don't think that's tradable. So if anybody's saying, they need to get rid of Seguin, I think you have to hold on to that contract. I don't think Benz is going anywhere either. It's $9.5 million until 2025. So this to me is the biggest issue facing the Dallas Stars. You have $19.35 million in your cap hit going to Ben and Seguin, and you've got some guys who are going to want to get paid, and there's going to be a squeeze here, right? And the reality is, if this team wants to get over the hump, they probably need to add, they probably need to shake things up at least a bit. And I don't know if they have the cap space in order to make that work, and we'll get to that. Rope hints at $8.45 million a year until 2031. He's worth every cent of that contract. Robertson, $7.75 million until 2026, where he's still an RFA. That's called theft, ladies and gentlemen. That contract he signed is theft. Heiskanen, $8.45 million till 2029. As this contract ages, it will just look better. $8.45 million. Considering the cap hit's supposed to jump next summer, that cap's going to be just fine. And Ottinger, $4 million cap hit for him until 2025, and he's an RFA when that one's come to an end as well. I have no issues with Ottinger's cap hit. I think it's perfectly fine, and I think it's reflective of a good starting goaltender, not an elite starting goaltender. He can get to being an elite starting goaltender. I don't think he's quite there yet. Now up next year, contracts that are due next summer are Joe Pavelski's, Colin Miller, Jani Hakanpää, Lundqvist. Now, what's interesting with Lundqvist, A, he's a restricted free agent. B, he got off to a good start with Dallas, really faded after that. We'll see what they do with him. Harley, RFA. I think Harley took the next step in the playoffs. I think he's worthy of, I would say, a 3 or 4 year extension and give him a nice bump in his pay. I think he's going to be good next year. Wedgwood's also a UFA next summer. So again, these are RFAs next summer. I would think that if Harley continues this, he'll get a pretty good contract out of it. I've been impressed with Harley throughout. It's just I don't think he's had the chance in Dallas. he might have got somewhere else. Pretty good depth on the blue line. So their cap space this summer is $7,394,671. That's going to get eaten up quickly. Delandria, even if it's only $1 million for Delandria, that'd take it down to 6.3. And then either you re-sign guys like Kivi Ronta, Glendening Olofsson, or you have to replace them, and that's going to cost you money. So they're going to have a little bit of cash to maybe go out and pick somebody up, but it's not going to be anything earth-shattering. They would need to move money out. And again, I think if they were able to move Jamie Benn's contract, they probably would at least think about it. But Jim Nill has been very loyal when it comes to Sagan and Benn, so maybe he wouldn't even think about that. Maybe Nill sees it differently than we do. He says, no, we need Benn. He's our leader, and he'll play with us till 2025, that kind of thing. So they've made the playoffs for the last 5 years. 8 of the previous 10 seasons, they missed the playoffs. It's one thing that I've talked about multiple times is that Dallas misses the playoffs a lot more than I think people realize. We think of the 1999 final, and they're usually a pretty good team, right? Not necessarily. They have missed the playoffs a lot, but it feels like right now we've got a good young squad in Dallas. And again, there's a good mix of veterans there as well. And it's just a matter of being able to get over that hump come playoff time. Their 108 points this season was the most they've had since 2015-2016, where they had 109 points. And it's almost in the range of when they won the Stanley Cup in '99, they had 114 points. So again, this team played really well, good numbers overall. They're just not able to get over the Vegas Golden Knights in the conference final. Now, DeBoer, I thought, did a good job. When Pete DeBoer was hired to replace Rick Bowness, it was clear that Dallas was looking for more goals, and that happened. And it definitely seemed to rejuvenate Benn this season. I don't know if that continues next year. I don't know if DeBoer's effects are going to lessen in the second season, and especially with Benn. Benn's getting older. I don't know if we can expect a 33-goal season from him next year, but we'll see. Jim Nill's been the GM. Oh, I got that wrong, but I'm going to leave that up. That's fine. It's fine. It's a video on Dallas, so there's going to be 10 people. Anyway. If you're one of the 10 people watching this, thank you. But yeah, Nill's been general manager since April of 2013. So he's had 10 years as a general manager, and he's up for GM of the year. There's been moments where I've scratched my head at what Nill's thinking. There's moments where I've thought he's a genius. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, right? And I think that's the case with most general managers. Every general manager makes mistakes. Most general managers will have a really good move on their resume. And then we as fans, and of course there's those in the media, that will then either praise or pull the GM apart depending on the day of the week that it is and what happened in their most recent game. They don't have a first pick this year. They don't have a third pick. But remember, being in the conference finals means that's towards the end of the first round. So that's okay. I mean, you'd still rather have a first-round draft pick. But if you're not going to have it, it should be in the bottom 4. Then you're not as worried about it. And they don't have a second-round pick in 2025. They have not been acquiring draft picks because they realize where they're at and they have a chance to win something. So I would expect next year's first-round draft pick to probably get moved. And I would expect them to try to move some money this summer if that's possible in trying to add. Because I do think that Nill's going to try to add to this group. And of course, upcoming and likely to make this team next year and could be quite the rookie to watch, Logan Stankoven. He has been absolutely phenomenal in juniors. He's played really well for Team Canada when he's been called upon, and I would expect him to force himself into maybe a top 6 role with Dallas, and it may mean some reduced minutes for somebody else on the roster, obviously. But we'll see what they do, because again, Stankoven means you've got a guy in the lineup who's on an entry-level contract. That eases some of the cap space issues your team might have, and so we'll see what they do. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What should Dallas do in the offseason? And again, if your answer is, well, they need to trade Benn, I don't know if that's going to work. And if the idea is, well, you need to strip Benn of the captaincy, I don't know that happens either, because one suspension for 2 games, I don't think that's a good basis for taking a captaincy off somebody. And you might alienate people in the locker room if you do that. So you have to handle that kind of thing very, very carefully. You don't want to placate some fans and kind of submarine your team while you're at it. So it will be very interesting to see how this offseason goes for Dallas, because they are close. The most frustrating place to be is close to the Stanley Cup. close to an appearance in the Cup final, close to potentially being a championship team, and not quite there. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. And hey, again, let me know your thoughts on how you would get this team beyond this stage and towards maybe holding up a cup. Because it would be great to see a team I cheer for win a Stanley Cup during my lifetime, yet again. It has been very, very rare, but we'll see. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.